What's up, everybody? Snowman here. Got a question for you. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? How do I make money from a podcast? And believe me, I've asked that question a dozen times, maybe more. The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcast. How about that? Get paid to podcast. Something I've wanted to do for a long time, and now with Anchor, I have a chance to do it. This process is very simple. So if you always wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. That's anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. Promote this one while you're at it. And if someone asks, tell them Snowman sent you.
For our next attraction,
You're listening to the Snowman in the Morning podcast.
Can't wait.
We continue on this edition of Snowman in the Morning. It is hour number 2, and I have someone very special waiting on the hotline, and he does the same thing that I do. Motivates people to give their best, and plus he shares a microphone with a lot of friends with sports in front of him. And he also has what's going to be one of my favorite books, and I can't wait to get a copy of it, and I'm going to have him talk about it, and I'm going to introduce him right now. This is Chris Williams, AKA Uncle Smoothie, and he joins the Snowman right now. How are you doing, buddy?
What's happening, partner? I appreciate that intro, man. You make me sound really good.
You are really good. You are really good. I'm putting it out there. You are really good. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me.
Let's dive in. Please tell me about your book, because I have been wanting to get you on the show to talk about this book for 2 reasons. 1, I'm very interested, and 2, inspiring men. Please talk about your book.
No question. Well, Snowman, first and foremost, the book is 20 Beautiful Men. It's a compilation book of 20 different stories of guys overcoming different obstacles, talking about their pain, sharing their emotions, things that men usually don't do. And I think it's a great book for almost anyone, specifically men, because like we talked about previously, you and I, sometimes men, we just don't share what we go through. And when we don't share it, we keep that energy in, and it turns oftentimes into bad energy. But a lot of these guys have overcome so many different things. And if it's not one story that you can relate to, there are 20 different stories. So you have to be able to relate to at least one. My story is the last story. The way that's worked out, I wore number 20 when I played college basketball. I wanted to be the last story, 20 Beautiful Men. So it all kind of works out together.
And I just love the premise of that book, because many times on this show in 6 years, I have shared some personal things that I have gone through off the air, including depression, including losing my daughter. And you said something that's very important, and my wife and I talk about it all the time. Men have been conditioned by society to keep their feelings inside. You're not supposed to show any kind of emotion, I've been told many times before. You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to show any kind of anger, because if you show anger, especially being a black man, that's a black mark against you anyway. And society has, conditioned us, to show that kind of anger anyway, so they can point to us and say, see, you see that right there? That is what you're looking forward to if you have him in your company, if you have him broadcasting your games, if you have him doing anything like that. What people don't realize is that because men have been conditioned to keep their emotions inside, they could pop out or pop off at any given time. And it's not just over one incident either.
Well, Snowman, you make an excellent point, because oftentimes as men, our default emotion is anger, because we don't share a lot of the other emotions so well, caring, sad, things that we would come across as, no, you shouldn't use that emotion. So you suppress that emotion, and it comes out as anger. I always share this story as a speaker. From the age of 15 to about 35, I would not allow myself to cry. Now, I could be sad, I could be hurt, but I would turn the sadness into anger, the hurt into anger. So you wouldn't see me cry. I would get angry before I would cry, but I came to the conclusion, you just thank God that you come to some maturity where you understand, or I need to use these emotions. They're important. And you brought up your beautiful wife. I have a beautiful wife. And if you want to be able to work with your wife, your spouse, or your significant other, you have to be able to tap into all of your emotions. And this book allows you to see how different guys have overcome obstacles to be better in using their emotions to be more important, more special, and be the best they could be.
And it's not about being a sap. It's not about being soft. It's not about anything like that. It's about, for once and for here on out, from here on out, men being not only told to use their emotions, but allowed to use their emotions.
Correct. And you need more people like you and myself to make it clear that it's not a bad thing. And I love the title, 20 Beautiful Men. Beautiful men. You can be beautiful as a man.
Yes, you can.
And when I sign my books, I always say, embrace your beauty.
It's the truth. It's the absolute truth. It's something my wife coaches me about all the time, because when I met her, I was going through a horrible, horrible depression. There was so much stuff going on. And we sat and talked, and she knew something was boiling inside of me, and it didn't want to come out as anger. She just sat me down one day and said, let it out. Tell me what's going on. And I told her everything. You know, like I said, losing my daughter, losing my dad. And just recently, she got in my head about, you never gave yourself time to grieve the two biggest losses in your life. You just pushed it down and kept going. And she's been nothing but right, because now that I've sought counseling, I've talked to my wife, and yes, I do take a depression medicine. It's helped, and it's really helped me to see I haven't grieved for a lot of things, but the two biggest, losing my dad in 2007, 8 years later, losing my daughter.
Snowman, I do some coaching, and that's an area I work with guys all the time about mourning. We definitely do not take that seriously. The approach to mourning is just let it go, be strong, be tough. That is a tough issue. You have to give yourself ample time to mourn over something. You've lost a huge piece most of the time in your life, so you have to give it some time. Again, I do some speaking. You're aware of that. I'm a positive energy coach.
Yes, sir.
And again, part of being positive is understanding there are going to be setbacks. Everything's not going to be good all the time, but finding out where you can fit in and get the good out of something. You can't just pass everything along. You have to be able to mourn over different situations. And you talk about death, that's a huge obstacle that a lot of guys don't take seriously, just people in general. You have to be able to mourn. It's
so true that they don't mourn death and don't do it correctly. I certainly haven't done it correctly, you know, and both of my grandparents, lost them in a span of 2 years. As mentioned, lost my dad, lost my daughter, and another D word that a lot of men go through that is starting to come out now, depression.
Snowman has been around for years, but we just haven't approached it, and you're correct. And you've been very fortunate to have your beautiful wife to come to you and sit you down and explain and assist and help. Everybody doesn't have that. Everyone doesn't have it, and you have to just be careful. And that's part of my positive energy tour, understanding that so many people are fragile. And I just go over different things on just saying things that can be nice, sincere, can assist and help somebody take the right path opposed to the wrong path. I talk about being able to smile. Two most important words in the English language are thank you, which lead to appreciation, which leads to validation. And the most important one, Snowman, hope.
Yes.
When you have hope, you get away from that depression. All we all need is hope, something you can. But when someone loses hope, they could care less about themselves. And of course, they don't care about anyone else.
It is so true. So many things emotionally that my wife and I have gone through in different parts of our lives, and we've been able to come together and talk about it a lot. And we basically talk about it on a daily basis and say, how are we going to take this and turn it into positive energy? I got the positive energy
Yes,
coach
sir.
in Chris Williams on the hotline with me here on this edition of Snowman in the Morning, talking about his book, 20 Beautiful Men. What gave you the message that you write in your book when you sign your book to embrace your beauty?
Because oftentimes people don't understand they are beautiful. And everyone has a certain amount of beauty that most people may not see, but you have to embrace what belongs to you. If you're a speaker like yourself or good on it, embrace it. Someone may not notice it, but you have to be able to embrace what you bring to the table. Everybody has some sort of beauty within. Embrace what is yours, love it, cherish it. And it's just a play on words because a lot of times men you never hear say beauty.
Right.
I'm a beautiful person. But yes, we all are beautiful. So I'm telling you to embrace that beauty. And you know what I love most about this book, Snowman? When you get yours, you'll see it. There's a yellow sticker right on the front. You know what that yellow sticker says?
It says
Bestseller. How many bestsellers do you know?
I know one now, and I got him on the phone with me. I absolutely
You got
love
it.
it.
If I was close to you right now, I would shake your hand and say, nice to meet you, Uncle Smoothie, best-selling author. I'm
That's
proud
wonderful.
of that because an obstacle I overcame was, as a young man, wasn't a big reader. Didn't even really like reading that much. But I understand to be successful, to be where I need to go, you have to read, you have to write.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have never known years ago, Chris Williams, Uncle Smoothie. And I'm back.
Man, one of my favorite play-by-play announcers of all time, the late, great Keith Jackson, who was the voice
Yes.
of ABC Sports for many, many years, said something during a baseball broadcast, because a lot of people don't remember. He did baseball for a long time for ABC, and he
Okay.
did some reunion games for ESPN. One thing Keith Jackson said, before you talk in sportscasting, you have to learn how to write. And one of
They
the
all work together.
Yep, one of the courses I'm so glad I took was sports writing. A lot of this I am proud to say I've learned on the fly from reading a lot of sports columns, a lot of sports articles, how to do wrap-ups from games and things like that, descriptive words to use. And being from Chicago, I listened to a lot of Bulls games when I was growing up, and that gave me the bug to be a sportscaster because my favorite voice of all time was Jim Durham, the longtime voice of the Bulls.
Great voice. Great voice. Now check this out. Born and raised in Philadelphia, my favorite voice, Sixer fan for me, is Zink.
Dave Zinkoff.
You got it, brother. Now,
Dave
I've heard you
Zinkoff.
on previous
Love
shows, Snowman. Give me a little Zink. I know you can do everybody fairly well. Give me the doc. Everybody can do the doc on the Zink. Let's get it.
And University of Massachusetts, number 6, Julius Irving.
I love it. I love it. Well, check it out. That's a great segue into commentating. Most people, obviously, who do not know me, but most people who do know me, I do color commentary for ESPN. You and I, again, we are brothers in that area. Voice of the Jaspers. Actually, I did my first Jasper game. I had been out of town because I recently moved to Florida, but I'm back here in New York for a couple of days or so. Broadcast some games. Did the game the other night. Good win versus Siena. Back on the air on Thursday versus Quinnipiac out of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, the MAC,
The
Division
Mac.
I basketball.
Yes.
So if anyone wants to listen to Uncle Smoothie, ESPN 3 on Thursday at 7 p.m.
Is Knickerbocker Arena still alive? Because when
Yes,
I
sir.
really
That's
got
where the Siena Saints play.
when I got into college basketball and started checking out the NCAA tournament, that was one of the arenas that was featured during what is now Championship Week. You know, always saw Knickerbocker,
right.
always saw Knickerbocker Arena host a first or a second round game. And you mentioned the Manhattan Jaspers, man. So many years ago, I remember seeing the Manhattan Jaspers not only being ranked, but winning their conference and getting into the tournament. And what people don't understand when it comes to college basketball, when you are what would be classified as a mid-major and you get into, back then, the round of 64, that's a party waiting to happen. Never mind what happened in the tournament game. That's a party.
No question. Now, Snowman, you may not realize it. In 1993, before I was Uncle Smoothie, I was just Smoothie then, I was the point guard on that team that went to the first NCAA tournament for Manhattan.
I remember that team.
1993 was our first year to go to the tournament. We won the championship at Knickerbocker Arena. I make a free throw to win it to get us into the tournament.
Yes.
Free throw against Niagara.
Absolutely.
Look it up, Google it. Uncle Smoothie was doing his thing back then.
Yes, indeed. I remember
a number 11 seed versus Virginia.
I remember the 93 tournament. And like I said, if you're a team that no one gives a chance to make the tournament, it's a party waiting to happen. I went through it a couple of years ago. Being from Chicago, my team, my beloved Northwestern Wildcats, finally made their first appearance in the NCAA tournament. And you want to talk about a celebration when they got their selection, got their seed, and where they were going, and they showed Welsh Ryan Arena, a place I'm very, very familiar with. All you folks up in Evanston, in my hometown in the Chicagoland area, y'all know Welsh Ryan Arena. You want to talk about a full house and a party that happened that day in 2017 was a day, as a Wildcats fan, I'll never forget.
Well, I'll tell you about our selection Sunday. Like you said, probably one of the more exciting days of your life as a player, because everybody has their attention on you. Being in New York, it's a little bit more energy, so it was so much fun. We had not been to the tournament in more than 30 years. So again, in being the first, and I always tell everyone this, you may have a better team than my team in 1993, but you'll never see or say that you were the first. We are the first team in Manhattan College history to go to the NCAA tournament.
1993, one of my favorite years of watching the NCAA basketball tournament. Chris Williams, Uncle Smoothie, joining me here on the program. And take everybody through that day, the anticipation, the build-up, fans coming in. You're awaiting your assignment. Take everybody through that process.
Well, for us, the great thing, Snowman, the MAC tournament was a little bit earlier than the other conference tournaments. So we got a chance to watch other teams battle. And the more exciting part was anytime someone would win their tournament, since we had done already, they'll say, and this team joins Manhattan in the field of 64. Everybody seems to be joining us.
Yes.
And they would put our name up there. This team's in already. We were already in. So we went through maybe a week of that, which was so much excitement. A lot of interviews. CBS, ABC, wasn't as much as it is now. Coming over to the school, interviewing us, being a senior. So I was always the spokesperson at this stage. So all that excitement. So leading up to the quote unquote dinner, all the media attention, your family and friends are excited. You just want to know where you're going to go. You're hoping you can go somewhere far. We ended up going to, if I remember, the Carrier Dome.
Yes.
We didn't go very far, but we wanted to go far, not understanding if you're closer, you may have a better fan base.
Yes.
But I always tell everyone, the one thing I may regret just a tad is because we were so excited, we probably didn't prepare as well as we should have to win a game versus a Virginia team that was beatable. But what we did do was we prepared the 95 team, which received the at-large bid, the first time a team out of the MAC conference to ever get an at-large from Manhattan College, and they won the first round. They beat Oklahoma.
They did. They sure did. And 1995, I was in Greensboro, North Carolina, covering the ACC tournament. So I had a chance to see Dean Smith, Dave Odom and Wake Forest, and all those teams, Coach Krzyzewski and the bunch at Duke. 1995. Such memories with the NCAA
Great
tournament.
Years, man. Great years of basketball for me.
Absolutely. The first year I started watching college basketball was 1982. And that's because
that's my man, Mr. Miguel.
I fell in love with watching Patrick Ewing and the Georgetown Hoyas, and they eventually lost to a fellow who took over the NBA, and you know who I'm talking about, Michael Jordan and the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Well, again, I affectionately called him Mr. Miguel, if anybody didn't pick that up. I was referring to Michael Jordan.
Yes. But you don't see games like that anymore, where you see a full house at the Carrier Dome because Patrick Ewing's in town, or a full house at the Dean Smith Center because you're seeing North Carolina State and North Carolina. I miss the old Big East, man. St. John's, Georgetown, Connecticut. I miss that kind of Big East action.
Well, you know what has happened, Snowman. The game has changed, and everyone knows that who's a basketball fan who works closely with it like us. But the one thing that I've noticed the most is obviously you have a younger brand of basketball. And what I mean by that is a lot of the best players, they leave school early.
Yes.
So we don't get a chance to see them, quote unquote, at their peak. During that time period, you had a Ewing who was a 4-year senior.
Yes.
Derek Coleman. All these guys are men playing college basketball. So you know they were going to really get busy regardless of who they were playing against. So you're getting NBA level basketball at the college level during that time period. So now we get strictly good college basketball when we get good players. And if it's a good freshman or sophomore, we know they're leaving after 1 or 2 years.
Remember the name Chris Mullin?
Yes, Mully, the lefty.
Yep, and how he used to terrorize the Big East for St. John's. He and Mark Jackson, I mentioned Patrick Ewing, you mentioned Derek Coleman, Dwayne the Pearl Washington for Syracuse.
Yes. Now, check this out, Snowman. We talk about all these guys, and again, they all played 4 years, if I remember correctly. I'm in college myself, watching these guys like they're pros. I can remember being a freshman, sophomore, watching them like, wow, if we played them, this would be crazy.
Yes, it would.
We would make sure we sat down and watched them anytime Georgetown came on, anytime St. John's came on, or the Cuse. Again, I'm a player, a Division I player at Manhattan, watching these guys like they're in a totally different league. Like they don't even play college basketball. That was the type of atmosphere that they created.
Absolutely, and it's the kind of atmosphere that you want to create. One team that I loved watching in 1990, anybody remember Stacy? You already know where I'm going. You already know where I'm going. Anybody remember Stacey Augmon, Anderson Hunt, Larry Johnson, and those boys?
Man. Yes. Now check this out. Here's a great story for you, Snowman. Like I said, I was, I think, a freshman or a sophomore during that time when that UNLV team was really so good. We would, after practice, again, we didn't have cable in the dorm. We only had cable in the locker room.
Yes.
We would go back to the locker room at night because those games came on late.
Yep. Those were like games.
UNLV. Yes, indeed. That's what we would do. We would go back to the locker room with snacks and the whole nine just to watch Greg Anthony, Stacey Augmon, Larry Johnson, all these guys. Like, wow. Unbelievable. But again, the point I'm stressing is we were players ourselves.
Yes.
So we were excited about seeing them.
I know I was excited. I know I was excited seeing them play. And remember, folks, when ESPN was in its heyday of covering college basketball, they had a little something called Big Monday. They had a triple header. They had games from the Big East, the Big Ten, and the Big West. And the Big West is where UNLV ruled.
And the great word you used there was ruled. Nobody could touch those guys. And they had so much fun.
Yes.
So much fun. If I remember correctly, Larry Johnson's nickname, a lot of people didn't know, was the Source.
Yes.
Because you could get everything you needed from Larry, and he was big on hugging everybody. After everything, he was smiling with that gold tooth. I love watching that guy at UNLV.
Larry Johnson's one of my favorite players. I had when I was a senior in high school, I was so enthralled with Larry Johnson and the Running Rebels. When we had a chance to make book covers for our books, I would make them with some of my different favorite players, like Larry Johnson, like Michael Jordan, like Patrick Ewing, and the rest of those guys. And my teachers would look at me and go, "How did you create that?" Like, I just drew it from memory. And when you have players like that, they are enthralled in your memory. And to tie it into everything that we've spoken about so far in this conversation, these were men that were having fun. These were men.
Having fun.
These were young men that were growing up with each other. This is when race didn't matter. This is where color didn't matter. This is when creed didn't matter. If you had a teammate, you were there for your teammate because that was your brother. Period. Take everything else out of the equation. You being a former student athlete, take everything else out of the equation. When you meet your teammate, those are your teammates.
And that's one of the great things about sports, the brotherhood.
Yes.
What happens in the locker room is supposed to stay in the locker room. Again, I know so many players and teammates who have stories that should stay there.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, in this day and age, everything is shared. But during that time period, like you said, that brotherhood was much tighter, and guys just really looked out for each other.
Yeah, they did. They did. That's why it was so much fun back then to play the 80s and the 90s. That's why it was so much fun to play college basketball. I started covering it, like I said, in 1995, and you could see the camaraderie then, even when the 90s were coming to an end.
Yes. And that's great stuff, man. Great stuff.
And getting to the Final Four, oh my goodness. I can't even imagine the emotions being off the chart. You mentioned 1993. I can't imagine the emotions being off the chart for the Fab Five of Michigan, the Great Five of Dean Smith and North Carolina, getting to the Superdome in New Orleans, being on that kind of a stage. When it's just, when men are on that kind of a stage, the emotions should come out, period.
Right. Well, just remember Chris Webber calling that timeout.
Yeah.
How emotional that was for him and his teammates. So it's a lot that goes on, and it builds your character, for after basketball.
It does.
When it's done correctly, when you have good coaches, you have good teammates, and all those things are things people oftentimes don't understand or notice. Because when I do my broadcast, I usually tell fans, because they always have something to say, we have to understand these are still young men. They're 17, 18, 19 years old. They may be very good basketball players, but they're still young kids. So they're going to do and say some things that teenagers do.
and they have to learn. They have to learn, and they have to grow. And in today's society, they're forced to grow at a very rapid rate. But back then, they were allowed to grow up with the time. That's what we need to allow these young student athletes to do, to grow up with the time.
Totally agree.
Uncle Smoothie, Chris Williams, joining me here on the program. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media, my friend.
They can find me on social media. Hear Chris Speak. I'm sorry, HearChrisSpeak. Hear Chris Speak on Instagram and Twitter, Facebook, Chris B. Williams on Facebook for the older group that likes to still use Facebook. That would be you and I, sir.
Well, Uncle Smoothie, I really, really appreciate you coming on the program. I'm looking forward to reading your book, my friend.
No question. Congratulations is in order.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job with the show. And I believe I read you're going into some sort of syndication. You have a larger audience. Keep doing what you do, brother, and stay on the grind.
I really appreciate that. Thank you, my friend.
No problem at all. And tell the beautiful wife I said hello. And
Will
shout
do.
out to my beautiful wife, Leah, too.
Tell your beautiful wife I said hi, all right?
You got it.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Hey, we got one more hour of this stuff. That comes your way next. Snowman in the morning, back in a flash.